I'm your host, Dino Watt, and get ready to be inspired as you learn exactly how to own your role. And welcome, everybody, to the Own Your Role podcast. I'm your host, Dino Watt. Thanks again for joining us today. As always, thank you for sharing this with your colleagues and your friends and really spreading the message around about the Own Your Role podcast, formerly the Propreneur podcast. And the only way this podcast continues to work and the reason why we keep doing it is because of the great comments that we get from so many of you, and we really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and follow, and especially as you hear about our guest today, make sure you go and follow him on all of his social medias and share your thoughts about this episode with him and his audience as well. Today, we're lucky to have Sam Sales on our show, really to understand a lot about investment, capital management, and what his expertise is. First and foremost, he is a former member of the armed services, so we always want to thank our service members for serving and protecting our freedoms here in this awesome country that we live in. And we all want to also make sure that we share the opportunity to be as forward thinking as we possibly can in all of our business dealings. You know, the point of Own Your Role podcast is to help you learn the best practices possible for your business. And that's why we bring people like Sam on. So Sam, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Dino.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It always is. We always want to make sure we're having fun. I believe in the value of edutainment, making sure people are entertained and educated at the same time, right? So as we do for every episode, we want to start off with getting to know your story. And I know a lot of times people can go into, the bio, but really love to hear where you come from, your background, and what got you into this space.
Yeah, great. I have lots of stories, just very, very interesting life, lots of different circumstances. Grew up in rural Oklahoma. American poor is what I like to say. Poor by our standards, but I spent so much time in the poorest countries in the world that no longer seems poor to me, just because we didn't have running water or took baths in horse troughs. Doesn't necessarily mean we were poor, at least in the way the world looks at things. So, loved my childhood, loved my parents, wouldn't change it for the world. Got out of high school, went on a mission for my church, came back, and then spent a few years in construction. And, around about that time, September 11th happened and all of that. And, I had said early on in my life, there was three things that I really wanted to do. One was to serve God, serve my country, and to serve my fellow man. And I don't know why I decided that as a dumb teenager, but that's what I did. And it just stuck. It aligned well with my heart and what I wanted to do. So I decided it was time to join the military. I joined the Air Force as a firefighter and went and spent time in Germany. Did that, deployed, and came out, thought I was going to go work for business, make all this money, finished my degree, went to Deloitte, and realized that I did not want to be a management consultant, What? Just was not my deal. At the end of the day, dollars seem to matter the most, not people. And it's never been my feeling. So I went back in the Air Force in healthcare, and it's been a little over a decade working with foreign militaries, foreign governments, helping them create sustainable healthcare systems. And really in those roles, I learned some key things that have changed me forever. One, I learned this in Afghanistan up in the north, working with a doc. When we align incentives, things happen. Okay, very simple principle. When we align incentives, things happen and it becomes sustainable. So Americans have this awesome habit of traveling overseas. You're like, hey, I'm a doctor. I'm bringing over this really whiz-bang, CAT scan machine. I'm going to give it to some guys in Chad, in Jamena, Chad. So second, third poorest country on the planet. And, the hospital they give it to has power for 2 hours a day. They don't have enough power to run a CAT scan machine. They say, thank you so much for this, whatever this thing is. And the doc will feel fantastic. His team will feel fantastic. They'll put it on their website about how much they give to foreign country. X. The local people, I know, I spent enough time there. The silly American leaves, and behind, these guys move this scam machine into a closet, never touch it again until the doc shows up.
Paperweight.
Yeah, it becomes paperweight. And if he shows up again, they pull it back out. They'll have a trusty patient going through it and say, "Oh, we use this all the time."
Put on a show.
Put on a show, and then try and get another $100,000 worth of stuff that
Wow.
they can't use. And so, two things there. Yeah, one, incentives matter. Two, it's got to be incentives that align and are relevant to the people you're working with. And then third thing is that I remember, I don't remember which country I was in, sitting there looking at the homes. We're out there kicking around soccer balls with some kids. And I was just looking at the homes and thinking, you know what? Government doesn't matter. It all matters back at the home, right? What matters at the home. And so spending years away from home collectively, reminder to me that I needed to come back home to the States permanently, and I needed to do something that made a difference in the home. So we created Ball Mountain Capital and align the incentives so that it's a for-profit company where people can invest and help lower socioeconomic class through. We take on very distressed apartment communities, mobile home parks, rehab them, make them profitable, sustainable. We don't put granite countertops in them. We don't gentrify things. We just raise the level of that community. We get rid of crime. We do what's right. We treat our residents right, and they in turn treat us right for the most part.
Wow.
And that in turn inside is, I did spend a year as humanitarian with USAID. We are not humanitarians in that sense of the word, where we just go give because somebody else is footing the bill. What we've done is we want to align incentives so that others can see it's profitable to do good to your fellow man. And if you can align profit with doing good, it becomes repeatable and sustainable. And it's at the locals level. We're not delivering Cadillacs and then giving them to people who can't afford the gas or the insurance.
I think that's such an important point, and I'm sure that comes from your perspective of, as you said, growing up poor. Even now, when you said earlier, yeah, we took baths in the horse troughs, but comparatively to what other people have to deal with, it's not that bad, right? It wasn't that poor.
Yeah.
But I can see where that understanding is, and just going in and giving somebody like Oprah a brand new house or a new car, or like you said, even a CAT scan that they can't use or don't understand the value of it, or it just isn't a right fit for what
Right.
they need, that goes, there's a lot of thought that must go into that when it comes to investing, because people don't know what they don't know. And I was just watching something earlier today where somebody said, yeah, we know that majority of people who are poor or lower income that win the lottery end up becoming poor again. It's not a matter of values. It's a matter of them not understanding how to understand money, and they're poor. They're bad with money. So we need to educate them on how to be better with money so that they can win the lottery and they can invest and they can have, whatever. But It sounds like that's kind of the idea of where you're coming from.
That's it. So the education system in America does not teach us how to use money. In fact, it does not teach us how to be successful adults, right? It teaches us how to be successful students.
Yeah.
Right. Which is great. We do need to be successful students, but we also need to be successful adults. We need to be successful family members, right? The old education system did, like, you worked inside your family, kids worked,
right?
You worked on your farm. If the family wasn't successful, you weren't successful. In school, we stripped away all the goodness there, and just left it, right? But we replaced it with other goodness and all these great ideas. Frankly, I don't care what you think about Lord of the Flies. I need you to help me with housing, or let me help you become profitable. I don't care if you're
it
whatever.
becomes a symbiotic relationship, right? I have a quote that I use in my trainings where I say that the team members wake up every single day to make the doctor's dream come true. And that always gets the team members to be like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do. I hope they appreciate that. And I say, but the other side of the sword is the doctors, in my case, I deal with a lot of doctors, they
Mhm.
wake up every single day to make your dream come true, to make sure you can pay your rent, you can put your kid into a school. Like it is a two-way street. It is a symbiotic relationship. Not one is more important than the other. It's a matter of perspective.
Absolutely. It's a matter of perspective. And, I spent so long in that international health community,
Hmm.
um, and I saw, the new folks coming in or the folks who were infrequent, really infrequent. Their perspective was so different than those of us who had spent years. I spent a lot of time, um, aligning what would actually work. Coming over there with $90,000 worth of first aid kits is a waste, right? Or $900,000 of first aid kits. I've seen that too, right? And then I'm over there like, hey guys, what do you got? They're like, oh, I got these bandages. I'm like, okay, these are filthy. But okay, let me show you how to use these to bandage a wound, right? It's, or make a sling.
You're doing the
That's
education part of it, right? You're
right.
doing that, teaching the fish, not just giving them the fish. Yeah.
That's yeah, and that's like what my team would do. And then my part inside that is I would go talk to the Charge d'Affaires, the Minister of Health, somebody at the top and say, okay, you guys are learning all these things, but if you don't have a policy in place that's endorsed and aligned by the government, it's not sustainable. And we're going to teach 4 people how to do things, and those 4 people are going to go get jobs somewhere else and do something different. And so I had to figure out how to align incentives with provincial leaders, state governors, all kinds of people in that hierarchy, and sometimes presidents, ambassadors, and so forth. And so the alignment with the bigwigs is money and power
Mm.
every time.
Okay, so let's narrow it down though, because most people listening to this are not going to be, in that space of money and power, right? Because they're not leaders or presidents of governments. When we talk about aligning incentives, tell us some ideas that you've had or that you've seen that where there is a good alignment of incentive so that we can kind of break it down and see it into our own personal offices or businesses.
Yeah. So 2 things. Let me talk about it in the investment world. All right. Uh, Here's a way that it's bad. You buy Bitcoin. All right. Where does that Bitcoin come from? You have no idea.
Mm.
Did you know that the number one currency of world global crime is Bitcoin?
Mm.
Why? Um, well, I guess there's some other, I won't say Dogecoin as a joke, but some other stuff like Bitcoin. Why? Because it's untraceable or it's very difficult to trace. It's also hackable. You can't steal it. Um, and so what do? They built these factories of creating Bitcoin, and then they sell it. So when you buy Bitcoin, let's say I'm just trashing on Bitcoin right now, but when you buy one of those currencies, you may have just funded old Al Capone in South America, and he's using because he mined it, he sold it to you. You don't know that. You don't care. You just
Yeah.
want your Bitcoin because you want to follow the market and you're in the fear of missing out, FOMO thing, and you're going to get your 60% return on your money. You just know it. And meanwhile, he took the money and he used it to hire a hit, killed some people, moved some drugs and some other stuff.
Wow.
So he just funded murder and mayhem in America or somewhere else. You have no idea.
You're completely blind to it because you have no idea where that came from. And you don't, and sadly, most people don't care.
And sadly, most people don't care. Does that align with does that align with you? Does that align with your morals and your ethics? If it does, you suck. One,
You need to
no
check
offense.
yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the blood diamond thing, right? Where people made such a huge controversy about the blood diamonds, and yet no one's really having this conversation around crypto. But you can look at that in so many things, right? I know my friend Garrett used to talk about how when you have yourself aligned, even your insurance, right? Your car insurance, like, do you really know that it's covering everything that you care about and is important to you, or your home insurance or life insurance? Right? Like when you really nail it down to that type of idea of where are you putting your money? Is it doing some social good? Is it doing also personal good? I love how you talk about, the benefits to both the investor and, in your case, whether it be real estate, the residents or the local community. That's something that I'll even say I don't think about all that often.
So I've started a clean money podcast, and we talk about this issue, and I've got a lot more to do, just to education wise, because we don't know, and we're all busy, right? We're all super busy, and we have a mandatory of 3 to 4 hours of TV every single night because we need to.
Because we're tired.
We're tired, and I need to entertain
A
myself.
distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to think for a while. I don't want to
Yeah.
cheer for my favorite number 17 doing whatever it is it's
Right.
doing, which is fine, right? But at the same time, we have to pay attention of our impact in the world, because we all have some kind of impact.
Sure.
Right?
Huge. Yeah. Well, that's one of my core concepts is when people ask you, what do you do? It's not really asking, what do you do? It's asking, what impact do you make?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They really want to know, do I want to buy from you because you're going to make an impact on my life? Or, are we just exchanging goods for services or money? Why is this so, and why are you so impassioned about this? Why is this this is a business you built around this idea. Why is that?
Those funny things you learn about yourselves, right? So one of the things I learned about myself is I like really challenging problems.
Mm.
And so I like them. When I was at USAID, I was on the DART disaster systems response team. First day of the the Ebola response. Much scarier in my mind than COVID, much deadlier than COVID.
Sure.
But still, people dying in the streets, nasty. I prepped the guys to go out, and they left. The first group that went to Liberia, and when that thing started, we had no idea how to respond to Ebola. Nobody did.
Mm.
Medicine Sans Frontier. I always butcher French, but Doctors Without Borders is reaching out, and they're like, Sam, we need help. We need this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying. So let's figure it out. But those things, like I like those things. I don't like the terribleness, but I like the fact that we can figure out a way forward and solve problems that nobody else has solved, or at least not in this way. The affordable housing epidemic in America is a crisis, right? It's an epidemic. It's endemic. It's in society. It's there, and it's propagated by the federal policies that are misaligned, because incentives in Washington, D.C. are perverse. I used to work there. They're perverse. Everybody understands it, but they still use it because it benefits them in some way. All right. So we got all these perverse incentives. Government is never, ever going to solve those problems. I just realized that I could. And it's not that I can solve the problem, but I can show people how to solve the problem. The way that we solve the problem is by aligning incentives, doing it at the local level, the things that I had learned overseas after years of work, right? So if we take those three principles and we apply it to this course set, how do you fix affordable housing? Well, it's not by gentrification. It's not by opportunity zones. Opportunity zones made a dent a little bit, but it's really by saying, hey, investors, you can make money by investing with operators, people who take over the property and do all the work and are willing to do all the blood, sweat, and tears, because this stuff is hard. It's not your fancy, pretty apartment complex sitting on Miami Beach overlooking the water that is a beautiful 2 or 3% return on your money because it's really pretty, and 50 people are taking their money out of you on the process. No, this is really, really heavy stuff, but our returns are always projected really nice. There's a lot of growth potential, right? So if you can align incentives, you can showcase the risk, but you showcase the rewards, then it works.
So are you able to align the incentives on both the front and the back end though, right? Because aligning the incentives for somebody who wants to invest in this type of idea and see the benefit of society, then you also have society you're dealing with, right? You have the society in that space. Are you going in? And I think for me anyways, my belief system is that one of the biggest challenges we have with growth, getting out of the out of poverty or getting out of the middle class, is education around money or opportunities or possibilities. Are you able to align those incentives on the back end?
So here's where it gets really amazing. Okay, so this is where the real impact happens. Uh, I'm I'm just a guy out there trying to get people together, structuring the deals, and making all that happen. My brother is the one who takes the plan and goes and implements it. So he runs our operations, and the way he does that is he goes out and he engages with tons of charities, whether there's Rainwaters, Women in Crisis, every religious charity you can think of. There's not very many non-religious charities. Most of them are religious. Non-religious charities are usually like, anyways, I won't talk about it. But because they just
It's another podcast.
Another podcast, right? Some of them are fantastic. And anyone else, and federal government proceeds, whether it's Section 8 or COVID relief funds or whatever. There's different programs, different things. Every state is different. Every municipality can be different. So it's a bit of a struggle there. But what comes in is now we work with tenants. All right. And we haven't cracked the nut of educating. We do have some educational programs, like Boys and Girls Club will put in an educational program. But what we do is we start talking and we start instilling our values and sharing our values and how things work and being very open and upfront with our residents. And it's a little challenging. It's a large apartment complex, 200 units or 180 units or 150 units, but it works. It just works. We see people coming out of homelessness who have been living on Section 8 forever. Now they're able to get jobs because they're not worried about getting shot in their apartment complex. They're not worried about leaving their kids alone, okay? Because now we have Boys and Girls Club. We also do a thing called substations. Walmart just copied us. By the way, they now are starting to do substations. We do substations, been doing this for years, where we work with local police departments and they put a substation in. Basically, we give them a unit and they use that unit for police to come and go and write reports and so forth without having to go into the precinct office or the main office. Yeah, so they can come in there, they can decompress, they can watch a little football, they can write up the reports, relieve stress that they have, and then go home. As a firefighter, I know for a fact that after you experience a traumatic event, you need some time to decompress and let that tension out of your body before you go home and get mad that Junior spilled the water at the table and flip out, do something you regret, right?
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. There's just all these things we do that create impact on the ground. And at impact on the ground, what we get is, well, rents go up, collections goes up, turnover goes down, educational outcomes improve. This is how, when kids are transient, moving from one home to another home to another home, because parents can't keep jobs or they lose their income for a little bit and now they get kicked out of the place they live. Now we help them get money from Section 8. We help them get money from whatever religious program or so forth that can help cover them. Now they are steady. Okay. And kids got after school programs. So instead of walking around throwing rocks through windows after school, now they're in a, Boys and Girls Club. Yeah, they got something to do, right?
Busy hands.
Busy hands, right? And so it's all simple stuff. It's just pushed together. And it sounds like it's a really awesome big program. And we're doing what we feel we should be doing, and it works. And so as those kids' educational outcomes improve, their schools, which are graded partially on how many students start a year and how many students finish a year. So if your school district is over a very transient population, your school rating is low, period.
Right.
You can have the best teachers on the planet. They all came from Harvard or Yale or Stanford or whatever your favorite college is, and they're all teaching there. It would still be a 2-star school because of the transientness of the kids. It has nothing to do with the quality of the education. It has everything to do with the transientness of the kids.
Wow.
And when you stop or reduce the transientness of the kids, it improves educational outcomes.
Okay, so let's bring this into a spot of business ownership, right? You're a business owner. You probably deal with a lot of business owners. How have you seen positive ways, or really any way, that there's been successful connection to aligning with incentives when it comes to employees and the employer? Has there been anything that you've come across that you've thought, okay, that's a really great way, or here's a new way to think about your incentives and how you can align them and making sure those incentives matter to the team members?
I will say we probably have the most loyal team members of any company I've ever seen. Uh, we've experienced some hardships because of interest rates. We're heavy value add folks, so we take on properties that need a lot of work, and in the process, we get these variable rate notes. And when the government goes crazy and does something really stupid like 500 and something percent increase over 10 months, like that just brutalizes
Yeah, for sure.
work, right? It just brutalizes us. So
Yeah.
there's no way for us to get fixed debt in the beginning because these properties have been ran by slumlords. You just can't. Okay. It's lucky we can get debt at all. So after we finish them, we move them into long-term fixed rate debt. That's a no-brainer. So hard things, first taking on investors who weren't really aligned with our incentives. They just wanted a return.
Mm-hmm.
And then when something like COVID happens, like, where's my money? You're like, brother, the COVID just give us a little bit. We got to figure this out. Right. And so, dealing with those kinds of things and so forth, our employees have been fantastically loyal and have worked through every struggle and turmoil and so forth. I also run a coaching program where we teach people how to do impact investing, how to buy properties and do these types of things. And what we've done is, like, we do a profit sharing module. So our people who join is $20,000. It sounds expensive, but my first guy went through and made 700 something grand his first year. So 20 grand for 700, not bad.
Right.
Yeah, pretty good return on your money, right? So I don't feel bad about charging that. It's expensive, and we put our guts into you to make sure you're successful.
Well, and you're making sure it's not about who's in the group, it's who's not in the group too. That's correct. That's a threshold. Yep.
That's a threshold. Absolutely. If you're not aligned, you're not coming in. I don't care about your money. I've already learned that lesson a long time ago. Won't do it. So so we do a profit share model. And so as they make money, we make money. So I make money as my students make money in the beginning because I'm working super hard to help them become successful. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not making money, because I've done this, I've joined these programs where I don't feel like there was a line. I was a dollar bill. I made my payment. The coach or whoever's running the program couldn't care less if I showed up the next day or not.
Wow.
Right? Because at the end of the day, they already got my payment.
Yeah.
Right. It's human nature. It's incentives.
Yep, totally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I had a company once, when I think about incentives and alignment, I interviewed them on the show, and they did applicants, like basically it was like an Indeed or a Glassdoor, but all together, everything all together. And we were talking about this idea of his is a small company, newer company, if you will. And he said, yeah, we needed help and we needed people who would be loyal and dedicated to us. And it came to happen to be that a lot of our team members who work from home are stay-at-home moms. And so we thought, okay, how can we help them really know that we care about them and also keep them loyal to us? And so once a month, they send a housekeeper to their home to clean the house, so that awesome. That would make them feel like, and they're like, no one quits us. Like they want that. But it's an alignment, right? We don't want you to quit your job. We don't want you to have to go to an office. We want you to be happy. And here's something that we know will make you happy in general and create that loyalty to us. So you giving an incentive program, helping your employees actually learn how to do what you do, that just makes total sense.
I love that. That's fantastic. We have so many people who are remote, and there is an art to gift giving, and I love that. What a great alignment of incentives.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about where you're going. Like, what's the goal? What's the future? I believe so much in the vision of what you're trying to do leads and guides the people around you. So where are you going with this? What's the ultimate goal?
So our goal is to change 1 million lives. I know that's only a drop in the bucket.
Mm.
It's to change 1 million lives inside of that lower socioeconomic class. So the lower workforce, those who would love to be in the workforce but can't get there, those who, for whatever reason, are on subsidized housing or something like that. We do not buy apartment communities that are funded by the government. There's plenty of people that will do that. What we do are these heavy value add projects that others will not touch. The government should incentivize it. Look, I can get 70 affordable homes on the market in 6 to 8 months by taking an apartment complex with 60 or 70 units down and starting the work and getting them done and putting them on the market. Where else can you do that? You can't. There's no other way to put that many homes on the market in that short of time. There's all these distressed communities all over the nation sitting there waiting for somebody who gives a crap to come and do something about it.
So part of, sorry to cut you off, but part of that alignment then means that the person who is hearing this right now, the person who sees what you're doing, who wants to invest in something like this, needs to understand, number one, we're going in and we're actually not only doing good in the world, but it might take you, and I'm guessing, you can correct me on this, it might take you a little longer to get that ROI, but you're looking at the long-term play, what it's doing for the community, as well as, yes, you're going to make some money off of it in eventually, like long-term. They're not coming for the quick flip. They're not coming for the, like you said, huge, 10% return in 6 months, type sucker.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not get rich quick schemers. This is a heavy process. When you flip properties, you're looking at the building itself. You don't give a crud about the residents. You just want to fill it and get out. And I see a lot of people say, oh, we average 30% return to our investors. I'm like, well, you're flipping properties that works in an economy like last year. It doesn't work in economies like today, and it's no lasting impact. You're just 100% focused on the money, which if that's what you are, then great. That's who you are, right? Your number one thing in life is money. It's not our number one thing in life. The money comes. We don't do any job unless we feel like we can at least get a 20% average annualized return.
I want to just point out something, and just, I don't know if this will help you at all or not, if this touches you at all or not, but I don't think 1 million people is a small amount, right? Like when you said, oh, we're here to help them, the vision is to help 1 million people. Like, who's done that, right? It's got, even if that's your start, even if that's like the next 10-year thing, people listening to this, I want to put out there too, whatever your number is, maybe it's 1,000 people, maybe it's 100 people, whatever, like that's the start, right? And there's a ripple effect that's going to happen no matter what. You help 1 million people, you're not just helping 1 million people, because you're affecting generational change in people. The ripple effect that will happen with that is huge. And I think sometimes we see numbers that we have. I have my numbers, you have your numbers, and we discount them a little bit because there's somebody else out there that's going to throw out a bigger number. We can say big numbers all day long, but until you actually make that impact, it doesn't actually actualize.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I also realize that there's no way I can do this alone. And so we have to build a new type of investor who's savvy, who's powerful, and who's impact driven. And it can't just be investors focused on ROI, unless you're talking about return on impact. But yeah, powerful, savvy, and impact focused for sure.
Well, I think that a majority of the people listening to this show are definitely savvy people. They want to make an impact. Most of them have careers where they realize that they are making huge impacts on the world just in their own way. It might not be through investing, but through what they do, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few people here on this call that will hear what you're about to do. And by the way, I tell you, Sam, reading through your bio, reading through all the information I had beforehand to understand a little bit about you, I wasn't expecting fully this type of conversation around impact and incentives. And I'm really grateful, because I really feel like the goal of this podcast is to help people better their lives. And we could talk about investing. We could talk about housing market. We could talk about multifamily units. Absolutely. We could do that. And we could just be another podcast too,
Sure.
right? We could just be another conversation. So I really appreciate you bringing this idea. And I hope everybody who's listening is thinking to themselves, okay, I might not be investing in multi-units, but whatever I'm doing, whatever the job I've created, whatever process that I have bought into, how can it actually have a bigger impact